Hey guys, I'm your host Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. So, if you don't follow me anywhere or aren't a member of the Discord, then you may not know that pretty much all of this year so far I've been suffering from an infected tooth. After countless dentist visits and attempts to fix it, we've sadly reached the worst conclusion, and last week I had to have it pulled. As I'm recording this, I still have stitches and a decent amount of swelling in my mouth, and I'm doing my best to recover as quickly as possible. But right now, I'm sadly not in any shape to record for more than a few minutes at best. As such, rather than entirely skipping this week's episode, I thought I'd do a compilation of some of my favourite lesser-known stories from over the years. If you'd like to keep up to date with how I'm doing, or just news in general, feel free to join the Kowabana Discord or follow me on social media. You can find links to everything over on kowabana.net. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy our first specially curated episode. So, let's get right into it. This first story is called Shinobara. It comes with a few simple instructions at the beginning, so try them out for yourself while listening. And then settle in. This one is a terrifyingly bumpy ride. Find out why in Shinobara. Warning: read this story at your own risk. If something happens to you after reading this story, I take no responsibility whatsoever. I'll warn you one more time. You read this at your own risk. Before reading this story, I'd appreciate it if you could take the following steps first. 1. Please touch your left shin. 2. While touching your left shin, close your eyes and think of the name Shinobara. 3. Do the same thing with your left ring and pinky fingers. After you've done that, please proceed with the story. Now, this will get rather lengthy, but let's go. At present, it's March 2010. This happened 8 years and 10 months ago. I was a high schooler in the 3rd grade, and I lived on Tateyama, a mountain in Toyama Prefecture. Cherry blossom season had almost ended, and it was a rather warm day. We were about to enter test season at school, but I spent my days doing nothing but lounging around. After graduation, I was going to help around the family's bento shop, so I didn't need to worry. Everyone around me was much the same. I wasn't a smart kid, so of course I was a bit of a brat. I even dyed my hair light brown. I was close friends with I-kun and H, who I'd known since junior high. We didn't shake down other kids or anything like that, but we rode bikes, without a license, smoked cigarettes, that sort of thing. You want to hang out tomorrow? H said, approaching me. He wanted to go somewhere far away. There weren't many places to hang out in Toyama. There was pachinko, and that was about it. Where do you want to go? I asked. The village, he replied. I was thinking we could go and do a test of courage, you know? And we'll invite some girls, of course, he added. So I agreed. Honestly, it didn't seem like it would be very fun, but if there were going to be girls there, then... I-kun got all excited and said something like, "I'll bring a camera." To which H replied, while scratching his right artificial leg, "Then I'll invite the girls." He then walked over to see them. H had lost his right leg below the knee. It was a bike accident, he said of it. In the end, it was H, I-kun, myself, and 3 girls for a total of 6 people. It took us about 2 hours on the train to get there. This is just like a group date. Now it's starting to get fun. This village H spoke of was supposed to be a normal village, But it was also said to be haunted. Although having said that, none of us were scared. Rather, we were excited and having fun. The village was little more than a collection of rice fields with some lights here and there. It was, in a word, the countryside. We didn't have any particular goals in mind, so we walked around at random. Then we heard someone calling out to us from far away. That's odd, I thought, and then about 5 minutes later, the girls started complaining. I don't like this. I don't want to walk around here anymore. I was annoyed and wanted to tell them that it was just someone joking around, but I started to feel dizzy, and then something sharp rang in my ears. At this point in time, it was still fine. I told you there would be ghosts, Aikun said with a smile. I'm glad I brought a camera. Suddenly I noticed that the asphalt we'd been walking on had turned to gravel. I thought, and looked around. What's wrong? One of the girls asked. Something about the village felt strange. Not evil, but like it was getting older. Kind of like a time slip back into the Showa era. Looks old, huh? The girl said, and Aikun started taking pictures. I looked around and saw what looked like a liquor store with a poster for Kirin beer on the outside. Beside it were some beer bottles and an empty crate to put them in. I could hear a TV coming from a nearby house. It sounded old, like some peculiar music. Having come this far, naturally, we were freaked out. Let's go back, we decided. Nah, let's go just a little further, H said, continuing on ahead. Come on, just a little further. It was at this point that I started to worry about him. Up until then, he hadn't said a single thing, and we'd already walked around a hell of a lot. But still, he was asking for us to go a little further. He clearly had some other goal in mind. While I'm able to think about that now, at the time, all I could think was that he was scaring me a little. He dragged his right leg behind him, heading further and further into the village. I could hear Tokyo Boogie Woogie playing from inside the houses. H stopped suddenly in front of one particular house. Are you finally ready to go back? One of the girls asked him. He turned to look at us all. His eyes were full of pity. What? Are there ghosts here? Aikun asked him and went inside. The girls followed him, and then H and I also passed through the gate. The nameplate read Shinobara. Unlike the other houses in the village, this one didn't have any lights on. One of the girls noticed a noise coming from the garden. Well, we had entered someone's house without permission. Of course they'd get angry, I thought, and I went to leave, but then H grabbed me. Let's go that way, he said. Quit screwing around, Aikun said to him. The girl and H were already facing the direction of the sound, and Aikun and I reluctantly turned around and started walking towards it. Come to think of it, we hadn't run into any people yet. This would be the first one. I thought, but it was the middle of the night, so of course we hadn't run into anyone. I didn't pay it much more attention than that. After walking through the garden for a bit, we ran into someone. This is the very first villager we've seen, isn't it? Aikun said to me. Then he turned to H. That's not a ghost, right? H's expression was strange. He breathed roughly through his nose, and even I could see that he was dripping with sweat. His legs started to tremble, and then slowly his teeth chattered as well. I followed his gaze and tried to put myself inside his head, but no matter how you looked at it, it was nothing more than a person bent over in front of us. This person looked like they had come straight out of the Showa era as well. That was my first impression of her. This woman raised her right hand into the air and then brought it down on the ground in front of her like a sword. There were about 4 or 5 holes in front of her, the size of manholes. Honestly, without any lights, I had no idea what this woman was doing. I had no idea what was in the holes either. The 6 of us watched this woman from behind as she worked in silence. We could hear a female voice singing something from the house next door. What the hell? I thought and smiled bitterly, when suddenly the area surrounding the woman lit up. It was immediately followed by the sound of the camera shutter. Before I consciously realized that I-kun must have taken a photo, I was drawn in by the scene before me. The woman was holding a machete in her right hand, and the light reflected red all around her. But what made me swallow my breath was what was in the holes. In that brief flash of light, I saw it. Hands, feet, fingers, chests, torn clothes, glasses, skin, and hair. Body parts. Lots of them. Red speckles coated everything, and I was sure I'd even seen some bright red internal organs as well. Pieces of the body the woman was cutting up lay at her feet. I broke out in goosebumps. My legs shook. Suddenly, H took off running towards the gate. He ran faster than I thought was possible considering he was missing his right leg. As I turned to look at him fleeing, the woman entered the edge of my vision. She slowly stood up and swayed side to side. One of the girls screamed, and that was the sign we needed. The woman spun on the spot, twisting her body around. With the machete in her right hand and nothing in her left, the top half of her body twisted, and then the lower half followed. She caught the girl who screamed on the temple with her machete. The girl moved in time with her, and at the same time, her screams were cut short. Having become one with the machete, she dropped unnaturally to the ground. I-kun, myself, and the other 2 girls took the opportunity to run. The 4 of us screamed and even breathed together. Ah! One of the girls suddenly groaned. The woman had grabbed her head as she was running. She had gripped her long hair and yanked her back. I turned back to the front and continued running. I left her to die. My head was full of nothing but fear, and that was all I could do. Stop! Ah! The girl screamed and started crying. I could hear the sound of the machete coming down through her screams as we continued running. I-kun, the other girl, and I ran for the gravel road as fast as we could. The girl running ahead of us suddenly changed direction and ran for one of the houses with lights on, banging on the front door. Help us! She screamed and banged. As she went to open the door, it suddenly slid open, and the momentum caused her to stumble. She fell into the entrance. I followed her in. Help! I screamed as loud as I could, my voice rough. I-kun stopped for a moment, hesitated, and then took off running in the other direction. Inside the house looked strange as well. It was full of orange light bulbs hanging from the roof above. On a small dining table, there was miso soup, fried fish, and some vegetable side dishes all lined up. There was a large TV in the living room, as well as some sliding doors and floor cushions. Yet there was nobody there. It was as though the people inside had disappeared. Yet I continued screaming anyway. Someone! Anyone! Crying, our faces covered in snot and tears, the girl and I looked at each other. Nobody's here. We had no idea what was going on. I thought my heart was going to burst out of my chest. Someone had opened the door and come inside. Was it I-kun? Or the residents of the house? The girl's face stiffened and looked at me. It was that woman. Instinctively, my hand shot out for the closet, It was full of brand new newspapers. I ignored the girl and jumped inside. She soon followed me. We softly closed the door and held our breath. We heard the creaking of footsteps. I broke out into a sweat. The creaking continued. She was searching the area. Listening closer, I could hear her laughing. Her voice sounded shrill and high-pitched. My heart pounded wildly. Suddenly, the noises stopped. I couldn't hear the woman's voice either. There was no noise whatsoever. The girl and I looked at each other. "You're in there, huh?" The door flung open and an arm reached in towards us. Her hand was stained red with blood. She grabbed the girl's neck and pulled her out into the living room. "No!" she screamed. I burst out of the closet. Not to help her, but if I was going to run, this would be my only chance. The woman noticed me and laughed. Then she looked down at me. Her face was pale grey and covered in the blood of her victims beneath the orange lights. She looked like a strange, abstract painting. Her lips were unnaturally moist and her eyes half white. A sound escaped her lips like that of air leaking. She held the girl's neck in her left hand, and with the machete in her right hand, brought it down towards me. Small things like caterpillars flew around in front of me. What is that? I wondered, and when I looked closer, I realized they were fingers. I couldn't understand the situation, yet when I put my left hand down on the ground to run, I realized I was missing my left ring and pinky fingers. They had been replaced with spurts of blood. Ah! I screamed pathetically and rolled around on the floor. All the hairs on my body stood on end. It was an unbearable pain like nothing I'd ever felt before. My heart pounded like an alarm bell. Cradling my left hand, I took off for the entrance as fast as I could. I heard screams and the sound of plates being overturned as I exited the door. It didn't matter who, I just needed someone, anyone, to help me. My own blood coated my clothes, and tears and sweat ran down my face. I ran as fast as I could down the road we'd come from, screaming the whole time. The sound of gravel beneath my feet turned to asphalt, and I continued running. I don't remember much of what happened after that. Next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. Apparently someone had come across me covered in blood and crying on the side of the road, and they drove me to a nearby hospital. My parents hadn't contacted the police because it was normal for me not to return home, so they first heard of it when I woke up and gave the police their names and address. As things slowly calmed down, I finally told the doctor and my parents about what had happened, about the place we visited for a test of courage, about the scenery changing as we walked, about the woman with the machete who attacked us, and the 3 girls who I'd seen die. Yet they never found their bodies, so they treated them as missing people. We still don't know where Aikun is either. Maybe that woman found him as well. I don't know. H was the only one to return home, but he refused to speak about what happened. 2 days after I woke up, he came to visit me in the hospital. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "First things first, I'm glad you're okay." Those words set me off and all the blood rushed to my head. "You asshole! What the hell are you glad about? If you hadn't invited us to go there, then none of this would have happened, moron!" I called him all sorts of other colourful names as well. He waited until I was finished and then said, "Well, you see..." This is what he told me. It was, in reality, the second time H had been to that village. Before he started high school, one of the older kids had invited him to go there, so he went along. Just like when we went, the scenery had started to change, and he took him to a house called Shinobara. He was attacked by the woman with the machete, just like we were. One of the older kids tried to stop the woman, and she slashed him across the stomach. The others all ran for their lives. Then, the older kid who had invited him said the following: "Because of that woman, there's no way I'm going to live long. She's slowly taking the limbs from people I know and snatching them away into that world. One day, when I have no limbs left, she'll no doubt come for my head as well. But there's a way to delay her coming to kill you, and that is to make other people think of her. She runs around indiscriminately killing anyone who knows about her. To put it another way, if even one more person knows of her existence, then that means her chances of coming for you decrease. The same thing happened to me once, which was how I learnt of her. To lower my chance of dying, I forced you guys to learn of her. If you want to keep on living, you need to let others know about her as well." 4 months later, H had a bike accident and lost his right leg. At the time of the accident, he saw that woman in the corner of his vision. She grabbed his right leg and laughed. It was that fear that caused him to make us learn of the woman's existence as well. I was dumbfounded. "Sorry," he said, standing up and leaving the room. Outside, a nightingale cried. As I said at the beginning, this all happened close to 9 years ago. I've spent my life since then trying to forget about what happened. After getting out of the hospital, I tried to go back to school, but I spent most of my time at home, and in the end, I quit. After that, I tried to finish school through the mail, while working at my family's bento store. 1 year ago, I fell down the stairs. I landed badly and broke my left leg. Right as I fell, I saw a woman standing at the top of the stairs, her lips twisted in a strange smile. I had to be hospitalized and my left leg was put in a cast, so I continued my studies. Yet I felt an intense heat inside my leg, so I begged the doctor to remove my cast and take a look at it. It turned out my leg was rotting. They had to cut it off. That woman took my left leg. That was what I thought. Then I started to have the same thought as H. I had to tell someone about that woman. I'd like to speak to you about the warning I left at the beginning of this story. The left leg, ring finger, and pinky finger are the body parts that woman took away from me. Those who did it have confirmed where my limbs were severed. Throughout this story, I've also tried to write in minute, particular detail. This is so that you, the reader, can picture the best image possible. In other words, you now all share in the memory of that woman as well, and I have ensured that her chances of coming for me again have lowered. I'm terribly sorry. The only reason I've written all this down is to ensure my own protection. But, having written all this down, I'm also relieved. At the very least, I pray that that woman won't come to visit you anytime soon. Next up sees us visiting a small seaside village with a family that does things a little differently. They have some odd funeral customs, but it seems they exist for a very good reason. Find out why in The Day You Mustn't Look at the Sea. In September, my grandma's sister, we called her Olbar, passed away, and so our entire family gathered to visit for the funeral and wake. She was actually the eldest person in our family at the time, and for some reason, the women in our family hold all the power, so distant relatives from all over came for her funeral. One of these relatives was a boy a year younger than me by the name of Shu-chan. He was the only relative that I could hang out with. It had been about 15 years since we last saw each other, but his parents and older sister were the only ones who came for the wake. I didn't see Shu-chan anywhere. At the time, I suddenly remembered that when I was in elementary school, there was another funeral. I think it was Olba's husband, and Shu-chan and I had a scary experience there while we were playing together. My father's side of the family is a little strange. It's not the eldest son who succeeds the family, but the eldest daughter. All of my dad's side, including Olba, lived on the Sea of Japan side of the country, but my dad was the third son, so he moved away from home to live in Osaka instead. As such, he had nothing to do with that particular family custom. Shu-chan's family, like ours, also moved away and lived in Kanagawa. Every year during the summer holidays, we all visited Olba's house a little before Obon and took part in Buddhist rituals, visited festivals, and spent time together as a family. Unlike others, my family and Shu-chan's family had to come from far away, so we always spent several days there. And because her house was close to the beach, you could see it from the street, Shu-chan and I would spend all our time there, from morning till night. In the winter of my second or third year of elementary school, there was a funeral at Olba's house. I think it was for her husband. We stayed there to attend the funeral and wake, and Shu-chan's family did the same. I've always been pretty carefree, but at the time, I was even more so. All I could think about was being able to play with Shu-chan rather than the funeral. We left home in the morning, arrived at Olba's house, had dinner, and then a short while later went to the wake. All I remember is that there was nothing to do there, and I was bored out of my brains. I couldn't play anywhere. There was a detached part of the house that we usually stayed in whenever we visited, but there were so many people there for the funeral that it was full. We ended up sleeping in the main house. After dinner, I remember someone saying, "Why would he die on a day like this?" When I woke up the next morning at 6 a.m, Olba, my grandma, and some other relatives were rushing about. They were hanging up small baskets. They seemed to be woven out of wood or something, which had strange pieces of paper attached. They were all hanging by a single piece of string from the doors and windows, so I hit them and played with them until my dad walloped me on the head. Before long, they started to close all the shutters, or maybe wicket gates, I don't know. And in the kitchen, which had no shutter, they covered the window with a large piece of Japanese paper fastened to the frame. My first thought was that this must be some sort of custom they did when someone died. The funeral service started early in the morning, and although I don't remember much of it, it was over just after lunch. I may have been a heartless child, but all I could think about was playing once the funeral was over. We had lunch after that, and I remember nobody said a whole lot. I don't remember what time it was, but most of our relatives left pretty soon after. My family and Shu-chan's family were the only ones left. I imagined it would be just like the summer holidays, where we all chatted and had fun, but I still remember the adults getting angry at me just for talking to Shu-chan. "Be quiet," they said when we were playing in the house. That night, when I said I wanted to watch TV, they got angry at me again. "Just be quiet," they said. Thinking about it now, none of the adults said anything that day. Since I was so bored, I talked to Shu-chan and suggested we go to the beach. He agreed. As I was putting my shoes on by the front door, my grandma's face changed colour and she rushed over, hit me on the head, and then dragged me back into the dining room. Shu-chan's father was there and he looked at us with a stern expression on his face. "You mustn't go outside today. Go upstairs." the two of us went upstairs and barely spoke a word for the rest of the day. We played Othello and then at some point fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept for, but when I woke up, I was cold. When I went downstairs, I smelt a fishy odour, a little more salty than a fishing spot. I went to the living room to check the time, and Olba and my parents were reading the newspaper and such there. Nobody was talking. The place felt uncomfortable, so after I was done in the toilet, I went to go back upstairs when I ran into Shu-chan in the hall. "Hey, I heard that somebody's coming here tonight," he said. Apparently the adults had said something about it that morning, and Shu-chan overheard them. I wanted to check outside, but all the shutters were closed, and I couldn't see anything. I wonder if the window in the toilet still opens. I remembered the tiny frosted glass window in the toilet. It didn't have shutters. The toilet was at the end of the house facing the ocean, so the two of us decided to go and check it out. The toilet was cold in winter, but the thought that there might be someone on the other side of that window was exciting, like being holed up in a secret hideout. At the same time, a chill ran down my spine. "Are you sure someone's really out there?" I whispered to Shu-chan. "That's what they said," he whispered back. The toilet window was located up high, so being an elementary school student, I couldn't see out it just standing there. The toilet water supply pipe was there, so I stood on that to look outside. I went first. I opened the window quietly, so as not to make a sound, and looked outside. A basket swung under the eaves. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something long stretched out from the road to the house. I couldn't see what it was very well, but the tip of that long thing appeared to be getting closer. I watched it for about 10 seconds before I trembled and closed the window in fear. "Did you see anyone?" "I don't know, but something was out there." "I want to see it too." "Whatever it was coming this way. We should go." I think I was almost in tears. I was so cold and terrified that I wanted to scream and run away. "Come on, let's go." I opened the toilet door and tried to pull Shu-chan out. "I want to see it too. Just for a second. Just for a second, okay?" He shook me off and then climbed onto the water pipe. He slid the window open and looked outside. After a while, he stood there, frozen. "Hey, that's enough, yeah? Let's go already." "Hey, look." He stopped mid-sentence and his throat seemed to close up. I had no idea what was going on, and while I was confused, I heard a noise coming from behind me. "What are you doing?" Shu-chan's father stood behind us with a terrifying expression on his face. Before I could say another word, let alone make excuses, Shu-chan's father grabbed my collar and yanked me out of the toilet into the hall. A moment later, he yanked Shu-chan out as well. Then he slammed the toilet door shut. Olba came running at the sound. "You fool!" My father hit me, and Olba grabbed me. "Did you see it? Did you see it?" I thought she was angry, but she looked like she was about to cry. I had no idea what was going on, but the adults acting so seriously made me even more frightened. "I looked outside, but it was too dark to see anything, so I quickly gave up." "Are you sure? You didn't see its face?" she said, getting angry, and I nodded through my tears. Behind us, my father and grandma blocked the front of the toilet with a large package. "Shuji, what about you?" Shu-chan's father said, grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him. Worried, I turned to look at him as well. Shu-chan was smiling. He made a sound that sounded like hiccuping, but his face was strained, like it was both smiling and crying at the same time. "Shuji! Shuji!" His father shook him and called out his name, but he gave no response. For a moment, everyone fell silent, and the sight in the hall made us all tremble in fear. They undressed Shu-chan and took him to the family altar room in the back of the house. Oba ran off to make a call somewhere, while Shu-chan's mother and older sister sat in the living room, their faces pale. Then Oba returned. "As soon as dawn breaks, we'll take Shuji to see To-san." I couldn't catch the whole name, she said. Shu-chan's parents just nodded. Then my grandma and parents grabbed my arms and dragged me upstairs. They made me strip off and crawl under the covers of a nearby blanket. "You mustn't leave this room for the rest of the night," my grandma said, and then she left. I heard what sounded like a short chant from the other side of the closed door. I spent the rest of that night huddled with my parents. I was too scared to turn off the lights, so I clung to their legs under the blankets, trembling. For some reason, my hands and feet were unreasonably cold. The next morning, Grandma came to get me. We went downstairs and Shu-chan was gone. "Shuji had a fever, so he's at the hospital," was all they would tell me. When I left the bedroom, I saw the same baskets that were hanging around the house and windows the day before, also hanging in front of the room I spent the night in. "You boys really did something stupid," Oba said as I was eating breakfast. My parents were getting ready for us to leave, and once I was done eating, we were going to leave right away. I apologized to Oba and my grandma, and then we left. When we got home that night, I broke out in a fever and missed school the next day. And that's the end of the story from my childhood. The year after that, my parents stopped taking me back to Oba's house. We only went back once, during the summer holidays of my second year at junior high. Our relatives were all there, but I didn't see Shu-chan anywhere. "Shuji can't come because he has too much work to do for cram school," his mother said. But at Oba's funeral this September, I heard something else from another relative. "Shuji-kun really is strange now, huh?" I don't know what Shu-chan saw that time. I don't know what I saw either. But when I asked my father about it, he just said, "There are some days where you mustn't look at the sea." This next story is another popular creepypasta, and it certainly got under my skin the first time I read it. A young woman moves out of home and into an apartment with awfully cheap rent. Supposedly, it's because of the cemetery outside, but she can't see it from her windows, so she doesn't care. It's a decision she soon comes to regret when terror comes knocking on her door as night falls. This one's called Night is Coming. I'm a third grade university student, and in October of this year, I moved into my current apartment. My old apartment got caught up in some road expansion, so they had to tear it down. They informed me beforehand, so around August, I started looking for a new place to live. I visited various real estates and found one place that looked amazing. It was closer to my university than my last place, and close enough to reach without using the train. Plus, the rent was 10,000 yen cheaper a month. It may have been a little rude, but when we went out to see the place, I asked the real estate, "Is there a particular reason why this place is so cheap?" He looked troubled for a moment, before going outside to the back of the place. There was a cemetery on the other side of the road. It was surrounded by a large fence, so you couldn't tell it was one from the outside. But that didn't bother me too much. I mean, the vacant apartment was at the end of the second floor, and You couldn't even see the cemetery from the windows. We haven't heard the exact details from the owner, but apparently it's because of that cemetery that the rent is cheaper, the real estate agent said. My eviction date was rapidly approaching, so I decided to take it. When he showed me to the kitchen, I noticed a red metal box above the stove, just to the side of the ventilation fan. It was about 10 centimeters below the roof, at a height that a person couldn't reach even with a chair. "What's that?" I asked. "Ah, that's the gas detector," the agent answered. It did have a small flashing light in the middle, so that made sense. At the time I was convinced, but looking back on it now, it's strange that it was red. And so, I moved in. I didn't have much stuff, so I asked one of my university friends with a license to help me move it over, rather than hiring a moving company. That night, I brought in pizza as thanks, and we drank some sake in my new apartment. "There's something about this place," he said suddenly. "Huh?" "Don't take this the wrong way or anything, but doesn't this place feel a little dark?" To tell you the truth, I felt the same way, but I thought it was because the lights were old. They were old fluorescent lights, so I decided to talk to the landlord about changing them to LED at some point. A month passed peacefully. The lights were old-fashioned, so they couldn't be changed to LED, but when I changed the tubes, they brightened up anyway. Then last month, at about 8 p.m. one night, I got home from my part-time job, and I was cooking in the kitchen. It was a simple meal, and I cooked at home every day to save money. Suddenly, some oil spat out of the pan and hit me on the face. I hit the wall in surprise. A siren started going off above my head, and when I looked up, the gas detector light was flashing furiously. I panicked and quickly turned the stove off, but I couldn't smell any gas. Maybe it went off because I hit the wall, I thought, and I grabbed the chair from my desk to check it. By the time I came back, the light had stopped flashing. About 2 weeks after that, I got home late one night, around 11 p.m. or so. I took a drink out of the fridge, and then my phone rang. It was from my mother. "Ah, Mum, why are you calling me this late?" Usually she was in bed by this time. "Your father's not feeling well," she said in her usual carefree voice. "Huh? What are you talking about?" My father had died 4 years earlier. What on earth was she talking about? My mother lived with my older brother and his family. After a short silence, she finally spoke. "Have you lost power there as well?" "What are you talking about, Mum? We don't even live vaguely near each other anymore. Have you lost power over there?" "I see. So you haven't lost power. Well, night is coming." Then she hung up. At that very moment, the lights in my room went out. Huh? What the? A blackout? For real? The gas detector started ringing. The red light flashed on and off, lighting up the roof. Crap! What do I do? I made my way into the kitchen in the dark, but of course the gas wasn't on. My first thought was that I had to stop it somehow, but while I was confused about what to do, the noise and blinking stopped, and I was thrown into pitch black darkness. I opened the curtain. I should have been able to see the street lights down below, but they were also off, meaning the entire area was suffering a blackout. But there hadn't been an earthquake, and there certainly wasn't a typhoon. At any rate, there was nothing I could do about it, so I fumbled around for my desk and pulled out a torch. I turned it on, and for a moment the light flashed before it too went off and plunged me back into darkness. Flat batteries at a time like this. Really? I opened the front door and went into the corridor. Seemed like the entire city had lost power. Oh yeah, I should check next door. I introduced myself to my neighbor when I first moved in. They were another student from my university. I pushed the doorbell, but there was no sound. Ah, it must have gone out with the power as well. I knocked instead. The door opened slightly, and a voice called out. "Who is it?" "It's Yamao from next door," I said. I heard the chain lock being removed, and then the door opened. "Sorry, the power suddenly went out, so I was wondering if you might know what was going on." "Come on in." The room was cast in an orange light. A candle flickered on the TV stand. "Ah, you're nice and prepared. My torch wouldn't even work. Do you know why the power went out?" "Because night is coming." "Huh? What do you mean?" "Look, come over here." He slid his curtain over, and I looked outside. The graveyard, which I couldn't see from my apartment, shone a pale color and looked to be full of people. "What's that?" "The dead are coming out. It's night, after all." "Huh?" I suddenly grew very scared. In the candlelight, my neighbor looked like an entirely different person. "I'll be going home now," I said, and ran out of the room. Of course, it was still pitch black. My phone suddenly rang again. It was from back home. I nervously answered, and, as I thought, it was my mother. "Mom, we've lost power too. What's going on?" "I told you, night is coming. Your father will be there shortly." I threw my phone, locked the front door, and dove into bed. I pulled the blanket up over my head, and then something started banging on my front door. The knocks soon turned into the sound of kicking. I stayed under the blankets, and before long, the sound stopped. I couldn't bring myself to come out from under the blankets, and like that, I fell asleep. When I woke up, it seemed to be morning. Yeah, it was bright outside. It was past 9 a.m., but I didn't have any classes until that afternoon anyway. I picked up my phone. There was no call in my history from my mother. The electricity was also back. I was terrified, but I went next door and rang the doorbell again. "What's wrong?" my neighbor answered. "Was there a blackout last night?" "I don't know. I didn't notice anything," he said. Which meant he would probably also say that I didn't go into his apartment last night either. I decided not to say anything. It had to have been a dream. When I got home the night before, it was late, and I must have fallen asleep straight away. Then I dreamt it all. That was the only way I could explain it. Just in case, I called my mother. "I'm just about to head to work. What's wrong?" she said. "Did you call me last night?" "No." All that left was the gas detector. I climbed on a chair to get a closer look. 4 screws held the metal box in place. I couldn't do anything at the time, but on my way home I brought a screwdriver, and when I got back, I opened it. Inside was a single large switch, like a breaker. It was sitting in the up position. Beneath it was a piece of white paper with the character for night written on it. I tried calling the landlord, but there was no answer, so I called the real estate instead. The person in charge answered, so I told them that I wanted to cancel my contract. When they asked me why, I said, I looked inside the gas detector box. Oh, I see. We'll cancel your contract for you. Have you decided on your next apartment yet? I was so angry that I hung up. I promised you a cursed box, and here it is. The cursed box subgenre of Japanese creepypastas is absolutely one of my favorites, and most of them were born out of Kotoribako's popularity. This one doesn't kill if you touch it, but it does have another, perhaps even more terrifying secret hidden behind it. Find out what in Kibako. The year was 1996, and I was in the 3rd grade of high school. I lived in the countryside, so there was nowhere for us to hang out. We all tended to gather at a nearby abandoned shrine instead. There were usually at least 3 of us there, sometimes up to 7, and we'd drink, smoke cigarettes, and sometimes play the guitar and sing. Nobody ever visited the abandoned shrine, and it was pretty far from civilization, so for us high schoolers, it was the perfect hangout spot. One day after school, we decided to head over to the abandoned shrine again, and myself and 3 others jumped on our bikes. It was just after 4 p.m. when we got there, and we smoked and drank. Being November, we muttered about how cold it was and chatted about this and that. Then we suddenly heard footsteps coming from the entrance. At first, we thought it was another friend arriving, but it was some old lady in her 70s instead. All 4 of us stopped talking immediately. We'd been hanging out at the abandoned shrine since we were in the 1st grade, and in the 2 years we'd been there, we'd never once seen anyone else come inside, so we were shocked. We were sitting on the stairs near the outskirts of the shrine grounds, so the old lady didn't notice us. Instinctively, we felt like it would be bad news if she realized we were there, so we remained silent and watched her. The old woman stood before the offering box and prayed. There was nothing inside that box but fallen leaves and rubbish. We'd checked it 2 years prior. As the woman prayed, she muttered something we couldn't make out. Then a minute later, she reached out behind the box and placed the bag she was holding there, and then left. Jeez, that scared me. I never expected to see anyone else here. She was a bit creepy. Of course, we all wanted to know what was in the bag that the old woman left behind. I didn't think it could be anything good, but my buddy Ogura ran over, grabbed the bag, and brought it back. Maybe it's full of money, someone said, but that didn't feel like something a person would leave behind at an abandoned shrine. Just put it over there and leave it, I said, but the other 3 didn't listen. Then Ogura opened the bag. What the hell? Yamazaki pulled out a bunch of old newspapers. I could tell they were old by how yellowed they were, although I don't really remember what the articles were about. There were headlines like, "Something something stranding" and "So-and-so arrested." I think the newspapers were dated to 1972. Why are there newspapers from 24 years ago in here? Everyone was bewildered. Maybe we should leave it be, Sangu said, also starting to look creeped out, but Ogura and Yamazaki started digging even deeper. Next, they pulled out a wallet. "Hey, if there's any money inside, let's go grab some drinks and have a party," Ogura said and opened the wallet up. Inside was a charm, a receipt, and a single note of money that looked to be either old, foreign, or something I'd never seen before. "What? There's no money." Ogura and Yamazaki quickly lost interest, but I wanted to see it, so Sangu and I checked it out. The money was probably from China or Korea, but it was old, really old. The receipt was also too old to read anything. The charm looked to have something written on it in Sanskrit, but not really Sanskrit. Maybe it was old Chinese or Korean as well. Sangu and I checked the wallet thoroughly, while Ogura pulled out a small wooden box from inside the bag. "What the hell is this? It looks like a treasure chest," Ogura said and tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. "Leave it. There can't be anything good inside it," I said. "I don't feel so good," Sangu said, but Ogura and Yamazaki ignored him and desperately tried to open the box. God, they're stupid, I thought, and they started throwing the box on the ground to try and open it, and each of them pulling from a separate end. They got more and more violent in their efforts to open it. "God damn it! Open, you asshole!" "Why won't it open?" Ogura and Yamazaki screamed as they tried to open the box, but as I watched them, I realized they were no longer acting normal. Sangu and I stared at them in amazement. They were trying so desperately to open the box that I didn't think we'd even be able to force them to stop. "Hey, calm down," I said, but neither Ogura nor Yamazaki seemed to even realize we were still there. They smashed the box on the ground, stomped on it, and tried pulling it apart. Unable to take it any longer, I stepped in and tried to stop them, but Ogura muttered something incomprehensible, and then sent me flying. There was nothing either Sangu nor I could do, so we wanted to call some other friends to help, but nobody had mobile phones at the time, which meant that we'd have to leave the area if we wanted to go and get someone. Neither of us wanted to stay behind alone either, so we ended up playing rock, scissors, paper to choose who would stay behind. I won, so I left to go get help. It was already after 5 p.m, and the sun was starting to set, so when combined with Ogura and Yamazaki's strange actions, the whole place felt creepy. The place we'd hung out at for 2 years seemed like an entirely different place altogether. "I'll be right back," I said, watching Ogura and Yamazaki take turns trying to open that wooden box. "Come back quickly, please," Sangu said, almost crying as I ran off. I dashed down the stairs, ran back to my bike, and just as I was about to take off, something stopped me in my tracks. That old lady was standing on the other side of the road, facing the shrine and grinning. She wasn't looking at me, she was looking at the shrine and smiling. I couldn't exactly go back up, and I didn't want to talk to the woman either, so I pedaled as fast as I could to Fujita's house, my friend who lived closest. "Huh? What on earth are you talking about?" he said as he stepped outside, and as I frantically explained, he finally realized how bad the situation was. "Come on, let's go, quickly. No, wait, call Endo first," I said, and we called Endo from his house. "Come quickly," we pleaded, and then we waited for him to arrive. Yet we waited 20 minutes and still there was no sign of him. It was getting pretty dark outside, so panic set in. We told Fujita's younger brother to tell Endo, if he showed up, that we went to the shrine first, and then set off. When we arrived at the shrine, the old woman was gone. The two of us ran up the stairs. And that's where my memories cut off. Next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. I woke up with a start and tried to sit up, but I couldn't. I struggled desperately, but both of my legs were in casts and my wrists were bandaged. A sudden sharp pain ran throughout my body, and I groaned. I lay there in silence, hurting, and before long, a nurse or someone came in. I don't really remember well. This was followed by my family and school teacher as well, I think. Apparently I'd been involved in a car accident, and I'd been out for the last 4 days. What about Ogura? Yamazaki? The shrine? Fujita? I asked one after the other. Don't worry about that right now, my mother said. You just rest. But I kept pestering her so much that she finally gave in and answered me. Ogura-kun and Yamazaki-kun are both dead. Fujita-kun is in a serious condition. I stared at the roof in disbelief. Apparently the 4 of us were riding our bikes home on the sidewalk when a truck hit us. Ogura and Yamazaki died instantly, while Fujita was in a coma. I read about it in a local newspaper in the library a few days later. I'm so glad you're okay, my homeroom teacher said, tears streaming down his cheeks. It's strange. I was heading towards the shrine. Ogura and Yamazaki were trying to open a box, so I went to get Fujita for help and then we went back to the shrine, I explained. Maybe I wasn't making much sense because neither my parents nor my teacher understood what I was saying. I woke up numerous times that night, and while I was of course shocked that my friends were dead, the strongest feeling of all was the sense that something was wrong. The next morning, Sangu and Endo came to see me. I'm so sorry, Sangu cried. I waited 30 minutes, but when you didn't come back, I left Ogura and Yamazaki there and ran. Ah, is that so? Was the only thing I could say. I wanted to tell him that he should have at least waited near the shrine for us, but I couldn't. After you left, Ogura started screaming. Just a little more! Just a little more! And then Yamazaki screamed that it was about to open, so I got scared and ran. I dunno what's going on, Endo said. But when I went to Fujita's house, his brother said that you guys told him to tell me you'd gone to the shrine already. I went right over, but you guys weren't there. Some other people were though, so I went home. I was surprised when I heard about your accident the following day. Other people? There were several people in our usual hangout spot, but it was too dark to see them and your bikes weren't there either. It all seemed a little weird, so I went home. Sangu and Endo chatted for about another 20 minutes, sad looks on their faces, before leaving. After that, a detective came to see me, and I told him everything that happened, but he seemed more interested in the accident than what happened at the shrine. I don't remember the accident at all, I said, and the detective left, looking disappointed. The next day, several detectives, insurance people, and lawyers came to see me and ask about what happened, but they were all more interested in the accident than what happened at the shrine. Apparently the truck driver was suffering from a mental illness and, after the accident, he fled the scene and tried to kill himself. Yet he was unsuccessful and taken to the hospital, but he refused to talk. A few days later, Fujita passed away as well. His little brother seemed to hate me for it, and when I went to visit Fujita's house after I got out of the hospital to light some incense for him, he ignored me the whole time. I had already been accepted to a university in Tokyo at the time, so from January I started back at school, and in March I graduated. Everyone was oddly nice to me, but things soured between Sangu, Endo and I, so we stopped seeing each other so much. Apparently Sangu took his own life 4 years ago, but I haven't been back home in a long time, so I don't know all of the particular details. So much had gone on that I kept my distance from my hometown. But in November of last year, my father passed away as well, so I returned home for the first time in 12 years. I wanted to go straight back to Tokyo after the funeral, but my mother looked so sad that I decided to stay just a little bit longer. I had nothing to do that day, so I decided to go for a walk around town, and next thing I knew, I found myself in front of that abandoned shrine again. I really did not want to remember what happened there, but at the same time, something inside drove me to go in. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The only other person still around from that time was Endo, but we hadn't spoken in over 12 years, so I had no way to contact him. Reluctantly, I went inside myself. As I walked around, I realized just how far the shrine was from any houses or the school. The supermarket we always used to visit nearby was gone and had been replaced with an office building. And nearby there was also a new convenience store, shopping center, and even apartment buildings. The view was completely different to 12 years earlier. But the shrine itself was still there. The same old shrine. It looked exactly the same as that day. I suddenly grew scared. My heart thumped and my hands got all sweaty. I wanted to turn back and go home, but I'd already come all this way, and something inside me fought against my fears. Nervously, I started climbing the stairs. Things should have looked like they always had, but they didn't. The shrine looked beautiful. The main building, the stone path, and even the offering box had all been made new. A young woman stood nearby with a broom, cleaning. She was beautiful. Normally, I wasn't the type to talk to strangers, but the shrine had changed so much that I couldn't stop myself. I called out to the girl. "Excuse me? I used to come to this shrine over 10 years ago." "Yes?" the girl answered. It's unrelated, I know, but the girl looked just like Minami Akina if she had long hair. "I used to come here around 10 years ago," I said again. "Wait here, please," she said, putting her broom down and rushing off to get someone. I looked around the shrine grounds. I could see a housewife hanging out washing on a balcony next to the shrine, a building that didn't exist 10 years earlier. "How can I help you?" A dignified old man approached me. He was no doubt a priest, but he was wearing normal street clothes. The girl picked up her broom, bowed, and moved to a different location. "I'm sorry, but 12 years ago..." The priest listened to me in surprise as I explained my story. I told him everything. How we'd hung out here for 2 years, about the old lady, and the accident after. "Ah, I see. Well, actually, 3 years ago this shrine separated from the head shrine and was restored," the priest said. "Oh, is that so?" I never thought I'd hear anything like that. Perhaps they actually got the box open, huh? That box was a gateway to the underworld, although I've never actually held it myself. "I'm sorry, what?" "A gateway to the underworld. where is that box now? Well, there are all sorts of names for it, but we call it the Kibako, the mourning box. My predecessor before I came here 6 months ago suddenly disappeared. I didn't hear the full details, but I heard that he was involved with the Kibako at the time. Eh? What exactly is this Kibako? Does it have something to do with the deaths of my friends? I don't know. It might be that it occasionally takes lives as well. I'm terribly sorry. The priest held a purification ceremony for me after that. He changed into his robes and, for 30 minutes, the atmosphere turned serious as he cleansed me of evil. The girl came over to check on us every now and then. I smiled casually at her as I sat in formal Caesar style. She smiled back, I think, and then left. Please forget all about what happened. Think of it as nothing more than a random attacker who just happened to pass by you on the street, the priest said. I thanked him for speaking to me and also for performing the ritual. After that, I returned to Tokyo and my normal life. It wasn't long until I started to have these regular dreams, like once every 3 days. I dreamt of the shrine after I arrived there with Fujita. Fragments of what happened between arriving at the shrine and the accident appeared. It wasn't the truck driver's fault. It was our fault, as Fujita and I struggled on the road with Ogura and Yamazaki. I also had other terrifying dreams of inside the shrine grounds. I've never told anyone about them. I fear that if I do, something terrible will happen. Recently, I've started to think that these dreams aren't actually dreams, but are, in reality, my broken memories. And finally this week, a young man enjoys going on solo trips to new places around the country without any real plan in mind. But on this particular night, he comes across something he could never have expected. Something that nearly changes his life forever. Find out what in Thunder at the Station. This happened when I was in university. I often went on trips during the summer holidays. It wasn't anything fancy like trips overseas or trips to discover myself. I'd just buy a train ticket to somewhere I'd never been before, eat some food, take a bath, buy some souvenirs, and then go back home. This was at the turn of the century, when the internet wasn't yet that common and pagers were far more common than mobile phones. I had no way to dig up information about where I was going, so I always just up and left without a plan. I generally stayed in manga cafes, and occasionally I'd spend the night in a train station as well. So this happened one summer. I took the local line somewhere in Kanto and got off one station before the final stop. I was the only person who got off, and the only reason I stopped was because I was intrigued by the station name. That was it. The next station was no doubt bigger and more populated, but I was already pretty sleepy and hungry to boot. As it turned out, that decision was just the start of a night from hell. For an unmanned station in the middle of nowhere, the building itself was rather nice and I'd have no problem spending the night there. There were no houses nearby and, of course, no shops either. But there was a vending machine and clean toilets. And even better, there was an open-air hot spring within walking distance as well. I had already been to another hot spring that same day, but there was no reason not to go again, so I made my way over. I climbed the mountain path out of town and found the small hot spring right in the middle of the forest. It was nothing but a small bath with a roof over it. I put some change in the fare box and bathed in the light of the mini lantern. The experience was relaxing, But then suddenly, the wind got cold. It seemed it might soon rain, so I got dressed and made my way back to the station. The spitting rain soon turned into a downpour once I got back. I just missed it. I put my luggage beneath the bench and sat down, proud of myself for recognizing the signs and just missing the heavy rain. The building was dark, but the lights on the platform were on, so I didn't have any trouble seeing my stuff. I took out my favorite sleeping bag, got inside, then set my alarm for an hour before the first train. That was when I realized something about the area felt off. Something smelt like a wild animal, a beast. And as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I noticed a man crouched in the corner of the building. My heart pounded, and it took all I had to keep my teeth from chattering. The rain outside had just started pouring heavily. I could hear thunder in the distance as well. I'd made quite a bit of noise since I got back, right? So, that man was just watching me in silence the whole time? Nervously, I looked closer at him. He seemed to be sitting formally, his legs tucked beneath him, and his head hung forward so I couldn't see any expression. He wore chino pants and a t-shirt, and looked better dressed than me. His hair was carelessly set, and his large body didn't move, nor could I hear him sleeping. Not even a minute had passed, but I was like, he has to be dead, right? "Hey," I said in a tiny voice. There was no response. Bang! I clapped my hands suddenly. No response. I decided to change the time on my alarm to now to see if that worked. It rang loudly, but still, no response. That decided it. He was dead. The lights were on when I first arrived at the station, and I was certain he wasn't there then, meaning he must have arrived while I was at the hot spring. But the question remaining now was whether it was an accident or not. I recalled there was a payphone outside, so maybe I should call the police. But supposing the man really was just sleeping, then that would be kind of rude. I approached the man, stomping as loud as I could, and then I bent down to look at his face. I really shouldn't have. Blood dripped down his chin like drool. But still, I had to know. I touched his arm, and it was cold. It was hard. Rigor mortis. He really was dead. The moment I put my hand on the door to leave, I suddenly had a thought. If I called the police, well, I was the first person to come across the body, right? That would mean interviews and all sorts of stuff, right? If things got bad enough, they might even suspect me. I sat down on the bench again to think. At any rate, I put my sleeping bag and such back in my luggage. I had to think of my alibi from when I got off the train up until now. I didn't see anyone. Well, I did see this guy. Hang on, there was still a chance it was an accident. Maybe he ran in here to take cover from the rain just like me and then sat down and died. I approached the man again and turned on the mini lantern. Oh no, there was a mark on his neck, like he'd been strangled. Well, that settled it. Crap. Well, first things first, I had to think of a way to prove my innocence and then call the police. That was my mindset at the time. If he was killed, then I should have called the police right away, and if I knew the time of death, then I'd have more than enough evidence to prove where I was at that time, but I didn't even think of that at the time. I was more worried that I wouldn't be able to go to work if the police kept me for questioning. The more I thought about it, the more confused I got. Then a little devil on my shoulder whispered something in my ear. "Run away," it said. I had no idea who this man was. I had no connection to this town, and I was clearly innocent. so the idea was certainly appealing. I should walk to the last station on the line, and then it would be morning before I knew it. And so, as I reached for the door, thunder rumbled outside, and I suddenly remembered that it was pouring rain. I sat on the bench again and debated what to do. Spend the night with the body, wait for the rain to stop at dawn and leave. I stared into space as various thoughts ran through my head. Before long, I could smell it. The smell of the man. The smell of death. The situation didn't sit right with me. I decided to go through the ticket gate and sit on the platform instead. I saw a waiting room in the distance. Lucky! I climbed the stairs and made my way over. The lights were off, but there were cushions on the benches, so it was more comfortable than I thought. If it wasn't for that body, then I could sleep here till morning. That was what I honestly thought. But next thing I knew, I was passed out, sound asleep. It was still dark outside, but when I opened my eyes, it was dawn. The rain had cleared up, and a beautiful starry sky that you couldn't see in the city spread out above me. Amazed, I crossed the bridge and returned to the station building. I wanted to leave the station without seeing that body, but after I passed through the ticket gate, I noticed the body was gone. Instantly, I adopted almost a fighting pose like a mantis. Did the body move? Was it still alive? I began panicking. I didn't know what to do. I just screamed like, "Wah!" And then I started to sing about how the number of tears would make me stronger or something. When I was done, I sat on the bench again. I tried to control my breathing and let my head cool down. I examined the area where the man was, and there was some type of stain there. Blood? Drool? I couldn't really tell. I smelt the room, and then I noticed something. There was something new I didn't smell the night before. Tobacco, maybe, but it was still fresh. I checked the ashtray, but there were several discarded butts in muddy water, so I couldn't tell anything. Again, I sat on the bench and mulled matters over. That man was actually alive. He was just soundly sleeping. Then he had a cigarette when he woke up, and then left. Yeah, that was the most logical answer. But then again, maybe not. I'd never actually seen a dead body before, but that person certainly did seem dead. So then, what was the truth? Did someone hide the body in the station, then remove it while I was sleeping in the waiting room? Who smoked the cigarette? It had to be something like that, yeah? I got chills. If I had stayed in the station building, then that meant I would have seen whoever it was. A delinquent? Yakuza? A foreigner? Either way, that person had to be the culprit. What if I started walking to that station in the rain? It would have been dangerous enough as it was, but I didn't feel like that person would just ignore me. Several small incidences piled up, and as a result, I found myself in the safest place to be. I ended up staying in the station until the first train arrived. About 30 minutes before it departed, a shaky old woman entered, and just seeing her filled me with relief. It wasn't like I could report that someone I didn't know died the night before, so I just pretended that it had never happened. When I got home, I searched the news every day, but I never saw anything about what happened. More than a decade has passed since then, and my memories have started to fade, but sometimes I remember that night whenever I go camping or spend the night outside. I've dreamt about it several times too. Thunder roars at a station as I'm asleep. A man appears in the waiting room and I run away screaming. It goes something like that. Sometimes I think that if I had reported the incident right away, then maybe the security cameras might have caught something that could have solved what happened. But, well, let's just say for now that I imagined the whole thing. Or maybe that it was all nothing more than a dream. A massive thank you and shout out to this week's Kami tier members, Ella C, Emerald and Kenneth Kawamoto. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Kaihan, Bizarre Crimes That Shook Japan Volume 2, out on Amazon right now. And you can check out our merchandise store at kowabana-shop.fourthwall.com. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to kowabana.net now.